Well, David, Elaine Luria is weighing in for the first time on camera about signature questions, which have grabbed headlines. Luria tells us she's trying to focus on 2nd District issues. The state Democratic Party, however, wants a judge to prohibit elections officials from printing Shaun Brown's name on the ballot unless and until a thorough investigation shows she has met the requirements.
Virginia Democrats are asking a judge to invalidate Shaun Brown's qualifying for the ballot. This lawsuit cites 35 affidavits from voters who say their signature or their family members' signatures were forged on petitions supporting Brown's candidacy. Political analysts explain Democrat Elaine Luria stands to benefit from keeping Brown off the ballot because then an independent candidate wouldn't split Democrats' votes. For the first time, Luria is responding on camera.
You know, I'm out campaigning, knocking thousands of doors, talking to voters, and we're talking about issues that are important to people across the 2nd District. So I'm really not concerned if there's 2 or other 3 people on the ballot. I think that our message will carry weight.
Our investigation confirms questions about who actually signed these documents. Some signatures under the microscope were collected by staffers of Republican incumbent Scott Taylor.
I mean, to put it simply, the buck stops here with the person's in charge. And I think that, Scott Taylor has questions to answer.
We've also uncovered another issue with these petitions. The address listed for Shaun Brown is not her address. Here it is listed as 5887 Campus Drive, but her attorney says her actual address is 5587. In fact, according to property records, the 5887 address doesn't exist. Why could that matter? State code says if the petition does not have the name and address of the candidate on the front of the form, the petition shall be rendered invalid. We cannot find anything in the code about what should happen if the address is incorrect. Brown's attorney tells me he doesn't believe this finding is significant to the matter at hand. He says what's at issue is people signing the petition to support Brown. Her correct address on the document shouldn't matter. Brown told us Friday,
"We did everything properly, and anything else is just politics."
A spokesman for Congressman Scott Taylor said it would be inappropriate to comment on efforts by his staff because of the ongoing special prosecutor's investigation. He adds, in the end, Ms. Brown secured her place on the ballot through her own efforts, and Elaine Luria and her allies will stop at nothing to remove Shaun Brown. Laura Geller, 13 News Now.